How do you move away from work-life balance and start to think of work-life integration? It seems like this is something we need to give thought to as working from home becomes the new norm.
Now, you've been working from home for a while, but you do the thing that I do, but just differently. Like, you have a separate place to work.
Yeah.
I think
didn't always
that's one
have
of the
that,
keys.
though.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really important. I think it's having boundaries around when you're working and when you're not, because when you work from home, you can just always be working. And even when you're not really working, you're kind of working, and it just bleeds into everything. And then you're not present for anything in your life that isn't work related.
Right. Yeah. So the work-life balance thing, I mean, to me, it's more like the work-life integration, right? And that's what Chris is saying here. And I think it's much harder if everything is integrated. If you're working and having a family and having dinners and everything's at home right now, it becomes this stew, and you can't. There's no balance within the stew. It's all sort of integrated, right? And so I find the way that, I mean, the reason we rent a co-working space is it's easier for me to be able to come here and do the thing, if I'm writing a book or whatever. But it sets up a trigger, a creative environment for me where I feel different in that space. And even we were trying to do the Zoom thing from home for a little while. I think we did 3 podcast episodes on Zencastr. It felt wrong because it was also in my home. Like, the environment felt wrong as well. It wasn't just the lack of face-to-face, but I'm used to this environment now.
Yeah.
But now everybody is at home, right? And they can't go to a co-working space. You can't even go to Starbucks and get away from the house. Like, if you're compelled to work at home, now a lot of people are grappling with what those rules look like in order to, like, maintain some kind of sanity when they're doing Zoom calls in their living room, like, all day, and their toddler is, chewing at their ankle.
Yeah. And there may even be boundaries you can set up. Like, I've heard Seth Godin talk about, he uses 2 different machines. Like, he'll use a laptop, really old ratty laptop to write on. And then if he wants to surf the web, he has, like, a tablet. And
like a Faraday machine. It's like disconnected from the internet just purely for writing.
Jonathan Franzen does that, and he cut the Ethernet cable and glued it into the computer.
Glued, yeah.
And I mean, there are things you can do. I've done experiments where I have my wife hide the Wi-Fi password from me. And so, like, there are things that you can do that set up those boundaries. But I think there's a physical environment boundary. So it could even be that you have a tiny desk on top of your your washing machine, and that's the place you've decided to work. I mean, that's like the Stephen King wrote in a closet for a while or whatever. It feels to me like setting up that separate space, even within your home, could be the trigger that you're working, as opposed to, I don't know, letting the work bleed out into the 24 hours of the day.
Yeah, and it's simple practices too. Just because you're at home doesn't mean you should just be in pajamas like all day, every day. Yeah. Create some structure and, build some habits into, how you're approaching every day, so you're intentional about it rather than just pretending like you're, at home sick for 3 months.